producer Rick Horrow, Beyond the Scoreboard, special holiday edition of a $1 trillion business of sports. We're going to look back at the top 17 items from 2017 business, legal, deal-making, marketing, things that happen in the boardroom, not the X's and O's. If you want the X's and O's, go find your respective team websites and or the players that are involved. But here you log on to NBC Washington. You take a look at all 17 items as well. Subscribe to Google Play, Audio Boom, Stitcher, all of our Apple Broadcast podcasts. We'll cover it all. And the most important issue today is, as we get into the holiday season, bowl games galore. We'll interview and talk to Larry Scott, commissioner of the Pac-12. His focus on the bowl games is one of the conferences that did not make the semifinals this year, but he still has a lot to say as far as governance. Before we get to that, let's talk about the top 17 issues in 2017. Number 17, major step forward in women's rights this year. LPGA's Indy Women in Tech Championship presented by Guggenheim Life, a strong example, training of women in STEM, tech workforce, and the like. But it's all part of a societal movement. International Women's Day, Women's March in D.C., and on. Look for it to be bigger and better, obviously, next year. Number 16, social protests in sports, the Kaepernick effect. You realize that we went from President Trump saying NFL owners needed to fire the sons of bitches who disrespected the flag, Stephen Ross putting together Rise, an organization doing what it can to ease tensions, an unprecedented alliance of professional sports leagues, organizations, athletes, educators, and sports professionals underscoring respect and equality. Net result in the NFL is $100 million or so donated to the organizations that will make a difference socially, culturally. Clearly, the power of sports. Number 15. Number 14 is EverFi. The online education leader focuses on teaching, assessing, and certifying students in the critical skills that real life demands. Their digital course offerings address the issues that put pressure on students and their families and traditionally have not been taught with common standards or quality. They made sports headlines in 2017 by partnering with major sports leagues, teams, foundations, athletes, and entertainers. EverFi enhances communities and education programs like STEM, for example, at no cost to schools by partnering with organizations big and small. That's 14. Number 13, growth company X-Tech revolutionized mostly by word of mouth the next area of focus in protective padding, shoulders, and legs. They custom-designed lightweight, shock-resistant, waterproof, malleable pads, and they're now the rage in the NFL, elite colleges, and high schools. Who requests them? Well, none other than Odell Beckham, Von Miller. Who doesn't? Aaron Rodgers and Jameis Winston, who both, by the way, suffered serious shoulder injuries wearing the old-fashioned and unregulated bulky plastic pads. This isn't a guarantee, but it may start a trend. Number 13. Number 12. Run by two former Nebraska football players, the Open Doors platform takes several thousand elite athletes, tracks their social relevance, and pairs them with brands. An infusion of investment money and growing partnerships with the leagues and teams have made them a must-look for companies that want to marry social, athletes, and activations together for big ROI. Look for that trend to continue. Number 11. Despite the departure of Keith Dawkins to First Tee, Nickelodeon Nick Sports had a breakout year. From bigger relationships with the major sports to special events around Super Bowl, the NHL Winter Classic, and the ever-growing Kids' Choice Sports Award. As the channel looks to engage with a new audience, sports will be a key going forward, as it was in 2017. Look for Nickelodeon to make the connection, and obviously the younger means better demographics and more for everybody. How about number 10? The ever-growing popularity with the sport, a new commissioner, owners with deep pockets, and a digital-first mentality has put the National Lacrosse League into the growth column at the end of 2017 and 18. Expansion in key markets like Philly and the West Coast, an intriguing take with Native American athletes, and even other perspectives make this league one to watch as they grow into 2018. That's number 10. Number 9, the Drone Racing League took another step toward mainstream sports business with conversations in 2017, adding big-time investors, expanding their relationship with ESPN, and creating new streams of revenue like licensing. They'll obviously continue to evolve with new tech, fan engagement, global ventures, and partners next year, which will keep them on the must-watch list for years to come. That's number 9. Number 8. Remember trading cards? Well, Topps found a way to reinvent the card business as its Topps Now brand sold over 1 million cards, giving fans across the country best moment access in baseball, the UFC, and MLS the day after those moments happened. And by the way, how impactful is Topps Now? The day after Shohei Ohtani signed with the Angels, the company sold 17,000 cards at his press conference alone. Number 7, the total solar eclipse featured the path of totality across North America. So naturally, sports across the country were caught up in the excitement. During this celestial event, the longest period when the moon completely blocked the sun from any given location along the path was 2 minutes and 40 seconds. The last time the contiguous U.S. saw a total eclipse was 1979. The first point of contact was Oregon, and it covered the center of the country, and the total eclipse ended near South Carolina. From there, the lunar shadow left the U.S., but process left us with many images and memories from sports. The NFL's Tennessee Titans, Carolina Panthers, and others ended practice early and handed out glasses to watch. The MLS Whitecaps wore eclipse-themed jerseys of their game, and other similar natured storylines took place. That's number 7. Number 6, the latest youth craze in classrooms and on sporting grounds are fidget spinners. These are brightly colored handheld trinkets that spin, have buttons to push, or otherwise keep hands occupied. The aptly named fidget spinners are supposed to enhance concentration, reduce anxiety, and stimulate learning. These devices, aimed to curb ADHD, have gone viral way beyond that. And this year of everyday non-therapeutic use, and sports marketing staffers across the country have tapped into the trend. Here's one example. One manufacturer, Spinners Only, has licenses with the NFL, MLB, NHL, and NBA, and at the peak of the craze, had all their products on back orders. If I'm a teacher and I watch this stuff, I demand more money, by the way, next year. Number 5, Bitcoin, a money-making machine in 2017. Bitcoin and any of the other 800-plus cryptocurrencies or digital-based currency are not controlled by a central authority such as a government or a bank. Supporters praise its use in secure transactions over the internet via the blockchain, a technology that records cryptocurrency transactions chronologically in a public digital ledger. And by the way, if you invested $75,000 in Bitcoin a year ago instead of buying a luxury car, that stake would be worth about $1 million today. The car, probably $60,000. Naturally, athletes with disposable income are fueling the craze even more and adding to the viral nature of the brand. Also interesting, sports organizations like the Sacramento Kings accept Bitcoin as payment at their facility. Obviously, more to come. Number 4, Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor dominated media headlines for months leading up to their August bout in Vegas. In the end, undefeated and undisputed boxing champion Mayweather came out on top. It was coined the money fight. The switch from MMA to professional boxing may have been a risky one for McGregor, but appeared to pay off financially. According to the London Telegraph, Mayweather's guaranteed purse about $100 million and McGregor's $30 million. On top of that, Mayweather projected earning from pay-per-view anywhere in the $125 to $150 to $200 million range, bringing his total profit for about $300 million. Not bad for a night's work. Some reports had the take at $400 million. The fight at T-Mobile Arena lasted a full 9 3-minute rounds, plus a minute 5 of the fourth before the fight was called. Mayweather finished his pro career at 50-0, and some sources project his career earnings to be as much as $1 billion. No bake sale for Floyd Mayweather. That's number 4. Number 3, from the tragic shooting to O.J. Simpson being released, Vegas had a year to remember in 2017. The Las Vegas Knights became the NHL's newest team of the year. starting their inaugural campaign at the brand-new T-Mobile Arena right off the Strip. And the NFL's Oakland Raiders announced their planned departure to Vegas. The Raiders planning to leave in 2020 if everything goes according to plan, following the 31-1 vote in favor by NFL team owners. Team banking on that $750 million public contribution toward their new 65,000-seat, $1.7 billion domed stadium. The public money expected to come from an increase in hotel room tax in the surrounding metropolitan area. Meanwhile, on the ice, the Golden Knights have had an incredible amount of success in their first stint of games, sitting tied first place in the Western Conference after 33, 14, 2, and 1 at home. How about that? Number 2, Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria impacted communities across the country. According to Facebook, their digital community rallied to help those in need by raising more than $20 million in the biggest fundraising effort for a single crisis in 2017. On Facebook, J.J. Watt and others helped raise over $20 million for areas affected in Texas. Other notables inspiring aid storylines uniquely powered by sport, social influence, and tech. Athletes as role models, you bet. Finally, number 1, Los Angeles. The Raiders, the Chargers, the Raiders not coming, but the Chargers and Rams there and playing well. But yet, the big focus on LA, 2028, awarded the rights to host the 2028 Summer Olympics in late July, bringing the Summer Games back to the U.S. for the first time since '96. This will now mark the third time the City of Angels will host the Olympics, following turns in '32 and '84. In an unprecedented move, Paris was simultaneously announced as the host of 2024 by the IOC. LA's plan to create a new games for a new era by utilizing the area's existing infrastructure to successfully orchestrate a low-risk, financially responsible, and sustainable Olympics. The first official bid was announced back on September 1, 2015, and upon being officially granted the right to host, United States Olympic Committee Chairman and U.S. and IOC member Larry Probst said, "Today is one of the most significant days in the history of U.S. Olympics and Paralympic movement, and the one we've been waiting to celebrate for many years. Who can disagree?" You know what? We left out the growth of esports. We've left out the U.S. being eliminated from the World Cup, but wait till 2019 when you can add 19. This year, it's only 17. Something's got to go. We're not always right, but we're never in doubt. Bottom line is, these are 17 of the unique stories. If you have any other ones, please tell us at NBC Washington. Bowl time, bowl time, bowl time. 40 plus 1, and the biggest bowls are upon us. The FBS Championship in Atlanta. We have the semifinals, the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl. The bottom line is the bowl season seems to be better than ever, but it brings up some interesting questions. Pay-per-view, Title IX, the power of the power conferences. What about the second-degree bowls, Division II championships? All of that really important, and to deal with that, you got to have people who are diverse to do that. Larry Smith, Harvard tennis team captain. He was the had a BA in history, by the way. He was a mediocre tennis player, but he certainly rose to a competent and entrepreneurial administrator. 6-year, $88 million sponsorship deal by Sony Ericsson with the WTA, as he was the director of the WTA for 8 years, 2009. After 2009 to date, the commissioner of the Pac-12. He's involved with creating the Pac-12 network, Alibaba deal with China, Fox, ESPN, coaches, social responsibility, a whole host of issues that Larry Scott is uniquely qualified to talk to us about. Here he is now.
Sports Professor Rick Horrow inside the boardroom, beyond the scoreboard, a whole host of issues impacting the trillion-dollar and ever-escalating business of sports. We think we have college football, but we also have basketball. We even have tennis. We have politics. We have academia, a whole bunch of stuff in one human being who happens to be the commissioner of the Pac-12. He's been the CEO of the WTA. He was also the captain of the Harvard men's tennis team. We'll get into all of that. Larry Scott, how's that for an intro?
That sounds pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's going to get better because we're going to sing your praises through these 12 minutes if we can. So let's get to the matter at hand. First of all, we are at college football, college basketball time, and you basically have the ability to tout something other conferences don't, which is a watershed deal with Alibaba, the Pac-12, the China deal, penetrating China like no other college football conference. Talk a little bit about that.
So this is really unique to our conference and our schools being, the leading universities and biggest academic brands on the West Coast. Schools like UCLA, Stanford, Washington. I mean, these are major global universities, and I was really impressed when I got here about the focus on globalization of the university and kind of quickly posited to the presidents and chancellors of the universities. If sports is supposed to be the front porch of the universities, and globalization is this trend and this important strategic priority for the university, is there a role for sports to play in that dimension? And the leadership of our university is very excited about it. So that led us down a path where tapping into some of my prior experience in pro tennis, where I spent a lot of time internationally, a lot of time in Asia and China, focused on developing opportunities for student athletes to participate in sporting competitions and developing some relations over there, which not only resulted in great trips and great experiences for the student athletes, but has created a platform where our universities can tell their story, engage with prospective students, alumni, strategic partners they have over there, and there's a growing commercial interest as well.
And it doesn't happen overnight. You saw the vision of it. And by the way, parenthetically, I was at Yale doing a little presentation this last week, and all they could talk about was getting through this season so they can play Cal in the game next year in China. So the brand transcends the Pac-12.
Yep, I'm delighted to hear that. We have managed to find a time for a regular season basketball game as long as the first game of the season, so that the teams can go over early. And because it's non-conference time of year, we've paired one of our schools against a leading university brand from another conference. So this year we had UCLA play Georgia Tech, we had Stanford play Harvard in the past, and next year we're really excited that Cal and Yale are going to play. And, as you can tell from that list of schools, we've tended to focus on schools that are world-class academic brands, because that's what really resonates in China. It's about the experience. It's about showcasing U.S. collegiate athletics. And it's really a unique U.S. model where you can combine the most prestigious academic institutions with the highest level of amateur athletics. And that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world.
No, and a little gratuitous scouting. You might already not be surprised that Yale is a very disciplined, a very technical-oriented team, but that's for you to pass on to your Cal folks. Let's talk for a minute about television, because you're a pioneer there again. Pac-12 TV, it doesn't start out of whole cloth. You have to bring Fox and ESPN to the table. You have to prop up rights. You have to get the presidents and chancellors to buy into your vision. How does that all happen?
Well, we definitely had to develop some consensus around doing things differently than we had done in the past. It started with getting an agreement that we would pool all media rights in the center and not have national packages versus local school-controlled packages. So, that was kind of... it
was Green Bay Packer-esque of the NFL, right?
Yeah, well, stealing a page from the most successful sports league starts with, bundling all of your rights in the center and being able to, make the most of the opportunity. But for us, it also came with agreeing to share revenue equally, which, was something behind the scenes, but a critical factor in getting our universities to believe that rising tide would float all boats, that they would do better collectively with a cohesive package, but all had a benefit the same way. So that was key. And then developing really a hedge strategy where we tried to maximize revenue and exposure through third-party licensing of rights, which we were fortunate to be able to do successfully with ESPN and Fox, but holding back enough so that we could get in the business of starting our own media company. We believe that over time, technology would evolve and change, and really were intrigued with the idea that we could be masters of our own destiny and control our own programming, because, core to our mission is not just revenue sports, football, men's and women's basketball. It's also about promoting Olympic sports. Pac-12 wins more NCAA titles than any other. We've got all these Olympians and wanted exposure and a promotional vehicle for those sports as well. Knew we had to do our own thing if we were going to have a platform for that. So we were fortunate that we were able to launch our own network, do it ourselves, and little did I know that the world would change as rapidly as it has, but it's really caused us to feel good about that decision, because now we see direct to consumer, we see these technology companies coming on board, we see over the top emerging, and we're in it and we're engaging with fans and viewers and distributors, and have a deeper understanding of some of the dynamics and changing landscape that others might.
Well, the holding back from the big guys and the equal revenue share are always visionary concepts, and every leader wants to facilitate that. But it also takes, I guess, a little bit of table pounding and a little bit of leverage and a lot of advocacy to pull that off at the same time. Hard to do?
Very hard to do. I think for any commissioner, people focus a lot on, the business acumen and what they see externally, but it's often, the diplomatic efforts behind the scenes don't get a lot of attention. That is really the art, I think, of leading a successful league of any kind, because, members have different interests. We've got big schools, small schools, urban schools, rural schools, public schools, private schools, strong football schools, strong basketball schools, strong women's gymnastics schools, with a lot of different masters to serve. So, the art form is really about creating a vision that everyone can buy into, compromise around, and getting people to believe in the idea that everyone will be better off if we're able to achieve certain things collectively that otherwise can't be achieved on your own. Because it does, it is give and take. It is compromise along the way, whether it's in how you share revenue, which schools or sports are going to be on TV, the times you play. There's a lot that goes into it, of course.
Larry Scott, there's another issue too. You talked about 7,000 student athletes that you directly represent. You have a history with the WTA of equal prize money in tennis. You have Title IX hanging out there. How do you reconcile the gross revenue production disparities between football and basketball and your obligation to deal with all of these other sports as well?
Yeah. Well, I've always enjoyed, working in sports where you feel like you're making a contribution, just, beyond the commercial success. As you point out, one of the things I took a lot of pride in at the WTA was, the fight for equality and social justice. And one of the things I love about being in college sports and at the Pac-12 is, associated with the universities doing things the right way that are changing the world in a very positive way from a macro sense. And in athletics, with 7,000 student athletes, many of whom are going to, or the first in their family to go to college, about a third of whom are on significant scholarships and are able to graduate debt-free, very different from, the typical student. There's a lot of great opportunity, a lot of great things happening for young men and women because of intercollegiate athletics in the Pac-12, maybe even getting into better schools academically than they would get into otherwise, that I get to see day in, day out when I visit our campuses, when I work with our coaches and programs. So I'm just very excited about what the mission of intercollegiate athletics is about. Not necessarily that which gets all the media attention. But, from the seat that I sit in and the interactions I'm able to have with our universities, I see the thousands of student athletes benefiting from the system. So I do believe deeply in the intercollegiate athletics model, that these are students, that they're going to school, and through sport they're getting opportunities for an education and financial support for that's going to help them be better off throughout their whole life as a result. And for the precious few, and I really mean precious few, I'm talking about 2% about of our 7,000 student athletes that are good enough and have the desire to want to go on and make sports their career, they have that opportunity as well.
Should they be paid? Are they paid already? Should they be paid in the Power 5? Should there be recruiting restrictions put on it? That all is going to shake out over time. What's your stance?
Yeah. So, and it's currently being litigated. My stance is they should not be paid salaries. They should not be employees. They should be students first and foremost, but they should be treated extremely well and supported in terms of, the ability to have academic success, to be supported in terms of medical coverage, to be given every opportunity to be successful in whatever they want to do. But I don't believe that they should be treated as professionals. I think that comes next. College is a great pathway for those that want to do that, don't want to play pro sports and get paid, and they can, depending on the rules of any particular sports league, that's what governs when they can go to the pro leagues. So college, the great thing about the Pac-12 and the other big conferences is, for those that want to go the pro sports route, they can do it. Take advantage as much as they want of the educational opportunity. For those that first and foremost, want the educational opportunity, they do that and then go on to something else in their life.
One quick one on college sports, then we'll leave it. One and done in college basketball. Where are we going?
It needs to change. It's of all the pro sports collective bargaining agreements, it's the most imperfect. Let's put it that way. The idea that the most elite young basketball players, can't go to the NBA out of high school and have to go to college or go to Europe or China where for a year, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'd like to see a model where, for however many have the talent, you look at a Marvin Bagley Jr. playing for Duke right now, was supposed to be a high school senior, but he advanced it by a year, probably be at Duke for 1 year and then go. For the very, very small handful of young superstars, I'd rather have them go out of high school than pretend to be student athletes.
By the way, so would everybody in the ACC, but that's another completely different issue. Right?
Other than Duke.
They're guys. So other than Duke, and they got a couple other guys like Carter there too. But tennis.
I love tennis. That was my sport. When you've played a sport like I did, as a junior at a high level in intercollegiate athletics, and then I played professionally for a few years, it's in my blood. So I love it as a sport. I'm fortunate. We've got some of the best men's and women's collegiate tennis programs here as well, and I still stay in touch with my friends at tennis. But I really enjoy the dimension of college sports. There's 25 different sports that the Pac-12 sponsors, and we host officially, and we've got championships, and the diversity of that is really, really cool as well.
Well, finally, so, as a WTA CEO, it's 40% increase in prize money and that $88 million Sony deal and the $750 million in facilities. You take on a new job in a sport you're familiar with in July of 2009. Has it been everything that you thought it would be? Surprised with how your accomplishments have resonated? A lot more to be done. What's your emotional take on the transition?
I didn't fully know what to expect, to be honest. I knew that, and what I was attracted to first and foremost was the quality of the universities, and loved being associated with quality people, quality brands, and I knew there was a sense that they wanted to take a fresh look at their media approach, their marketing approach, and I thought my background and skills would translate. And I was passionate about it because I was a student athlete myself. I knew I would enjoy that. But, beyond that, there was a ton I didn't know about the politics of intercollegiate athletics, the dynamics of who you work with on the campuses, and I really, really have loved it. But my favorite part of it is the opportunity to engage with the student athletes themselves when I travel around to the competitions and the campuses. As you know, because you enjoy getting out to campuses and teaching, keeps you young, keeps you thinking fresh, keeps you on your toes, and always evolving your perspective on things. So I really enjoy being in an environment around a lot of young people in an environment like universities where people are challenging conventional norms and thinking about changing the world.
Your tennis guys miss you. Your Pac-12 guys love you. Larry Scott, Rick Horrow, Beyond the Scoreboard. See you in a few minutes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank you for another year of Beyond the Scoreboard, $1 trillion business of sports. Next year, probably $1.2 trillion and even more. Bob Stoops comes up right after the new year, before the national championship. Bob Greasy, Pat O'Connor, others who are significant in the industry as we head into the NHL All-Star Game in Tampa, the Australian Open, the Super Bowl, Daytona 500, the opening of the baseball season, the Final Four, the Masters, and many, 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 many more items. We'd like to thank you for listening. Join us again, Audio Boom, Apple Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, and others. And join us next week when we go Beyond the Scoreboard.